Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom.
We're going to be talking about one of this world's actually best animals, in my opinion, and that's the elephant. I know that a lot of you out there have gone to the zoo and seen elephants up close, or maybe some of you, like me, have gone to Thailand at some point. The elephant is kind of worshipped over there in some ways, that they have a lot of them, but they've turned into tourist attractions as well. And so I don't think the tourists are that bad towards the elephants. It's the ones that are taking care of them that don't treat them very well. There was a video online, it's been about a year, I guess, that I was watching about elephants. They have really great memories. We always hear that, an elephant never forgets is a line that we were raised with as kids. And they really can remember their family members. And there was this wonderful video of two elephants that were separated, 10, 15 years ago, but they'd grown up together. And lo and behold, they were together in these cages. And the elephant, they recognized each other, and the elephant bent the bars so that they could touch each other.
Wow, interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a point for elephants. And
they're so cute.
We need to remember that they do have feelings and they are
do.
quite sensitive. But, of course, tourists like to check out elephants. And we don't see this stuff, but evidently there are some things going on behind the scenes just so we can see these elephants do tricks and stuff like that.
Right.
So try to remember that. And I think, of course, there are lots of tourists from China who like this sort of thing. And so, of course, they want to cater to the tourists there in Thailand and India or whatever. So this is something that we do need to mention that is happening to elephants, and maybe we can do something about it. So let's talk about the troubling truth behind elephant tourism. Let's read through the entire content of today's lesson.
Lumbering gracefully through the forest, the Asian elephant is a sight to behold. It's no wonder that every year, millions of tourists travel to countries like Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos just to experience these sweet-natured animals for themselves. Many elephant centers promise visitors the chance to appreciate the impressive beauty of elephants up close. These centers are a dream come true for tourists, but behind closed doors, it's a very different story for the gentle giants themselves. Wildlife attractions, particularly those involving elephants, play an important role in Southeast Asia's thriving tourism industry. This is instantly visible in popular destinations like Thailand's Chiang Mai or Laos's Luang Prabang, where the number of elephant tours, sanctuaries, and experiences is rising substantially to keep up with tourist demand. The same is true of the region's captive elephant populations. In Thailand alone, the number of elephants living in captivity rose from 1,688 to 2,198 in just 6 years, according to World Animal Protection, WAP. Some of these elephants were bred in captivity, but others were ambushed and taken from the wild. Government corruption allows poachers to smuggle these poor creatures around Southeast Asia with relative ease. Elephants are intelligent, social creatures with highly developed memories, and being taken from their herd can leave them with lasting emotional scars. But you won't see any of this if you go on an elephant ride or visit an entertainment venue where elephants perform tricks. Tragically, this is often because the elephants aren't used for this kind of tourism until they have completed brutal training regimes designed to suppress any natural behaviors that might make them disobedient or dangerous to tourists. Awareness about the dreadful implications of elephant riding is rising. However, few people realize that the dark side of elephant tourism doesn't stop at the saddle.
Okay, let's get to it. Let's discuss the content of today's lesson. It's Unit 6, and we're talking about the troubling truth behind elephant tourism. Yes, that's the popular form of tourism in countries in Asia, Thailand, India, and other places. And yes, people go to check out these elephants. Maybe they go for elephant rides or see them give shows and stuff like that. And we might think, oh, there's no harm in that. It's just an elephant. They probably treat them quite well. Otherwise, they need to come back for shows. So if they did not treat them well, then they wouldn't be able to come out again. But we're going to talk about some of the cruelty that's going on with those elephants so that you can have a cute little show and take pictures and post them online and stuff like that. All at the cost of elephants' mental health and other issues. So, yes, indeed, the troubling truth behind elephant tourism. Here's the first paragraph. It says, lumbering gracefully through the forest, the Asian elephant is a sight to behold. So if you lumber, that just kind of means you walk slowly, especially if you're describing something very, very big, like an elephant lumbering along. You could use that to describe not just animals, but anything big, like a truck was lumbering down the road or something like that. Or maybe Fat Albert was lumbering down the sidewalk as he was walking to school. Yes, lumbering gracefully through the forest.
Fat Albert was a cartoon character that we grew up with, and he was a really fat kid who probably walked a little slowly. Yeah. To lumber is actually a verb. Here's the gerund version. So it turns into a noun. The verb ing turns into a noun, but your vocabulary word is a verb, to lumber. Lumber is actually something that we call wood that has been taken from a tree and sawn and sawed in half, or whatever they do, and is used in building at one point, lumber. But here, if it's a verb, it just means something that's pretty large, I would say. It couldn't be a skinny person. I would say lumber, someone's lumbering when they're moving in kind of a very slow, awkward way. They're heavy, or it's heavy. Like Tom said, it could be a truck. Especially a truck which has a lot of equipment on it, and it's going kind of slowly. So we're describing the Asian elephant. I just looked up how long they lived. The typical age is 60 years, but we had the famous elephant. You were telling me Lin Wang.
Lin Wang, yeah.
Yeah, he lived a long time. Much longer than 60 years, that's for sure. But I'll have Tom tell you about him in a minute. So, a sight to behold, guys, this is a phrase we use quite often. If you haven't seen a friend or family member in a long time and, they fly into town, you could say, oh, aren't you a sight to behold? It's something that you're happy to see.
Right, a sight to see, a sight to behold, something to experience. It's no wonder that every year millions of tourists travel to countries like Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos just to experience these sweet-natured animals for themselves. So I guess these are some of the countries you can go to see elephants. Thailand, of course. Cambodia is right next to Thailand. And then Laos is also right next to Thailand as well. And I guess you can go to those countries to see elephant shows, among many other attractions. And we're describing them as being sweet-natured animals. They're kind of gentle. They're not aggressive like bulls or like crocodiles or something like that. Elephants are fairly gentle. I'm sure they'll get angry, though, if you make them mad.
Yeah, they can.
You got to watch out. But
sure.
Basically, for the most part, they're pretty mellow. They're pretty down-to-earth. They are sweet-natured animals.
Yeah, they can be protective if you're hurting a family member, which we refer to elephant herds as just herds, but that's actually a family of elephants. So many elephant centers promise visitors the chance to appreciate the impressive beauty of elephants up close. Yeah, it's just kind of fun to get close to them. I have taken a ride on an elephant. They're sure tall. And I was a little bit afraid in the saddle of falling off. But they're slow. They don't walk really fast. They were quite kind. We fed them peanuts, things like that. So, yeah, these centers are a dream come true for tourists. That's kind of the big draw or the big attraction of Thailand for many people. And if you go to Thailand, you see elephant images everywhere. I even have some pants that have little elephants on them that I brought home from Thailand. But yeah, elephants are considered to be kind of a lucky animal there. Now, this is kind of the bad part of these elephant centers that we're going to be sharing over the next couple of days, though. It says here, but behind closed doors. When you see that phrase or hear that phrase behind closed doors, it just means things are going on that you aren't aware of that turns a situation into a negative situation. You might have a friend and it looks like their family is so happy together, but behind closed doors, maybe the dad beats the mom or something awful, Behind closed doors, things that happen out of your sight that would change how you feel about something. And that's kind of what we're going to be sharing with you over the next couple of days is what happens behind closed doors to these beautiful, sweet-natured animals.
Yeah, I can't help it, but Behind Closed Doors is an old country song by Charlie Rich. I don't know if you know that song.
No.
When we get behind closed doors.
Oh, yeah, that one.
But we're not talking about country music today. We're talking about what goes on behind closed doors in regard to the way elephants are treated. And we'll continue talking about that in just a couple of seconds. So let's take a break right now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，欢迎收听 English Digest， 我是哈利。提到去泰国旅行，除了一些名胜古迹、沙滩戏水之外，想必很多人会想到骑大象。但当你在骑大象的时候，是否有想过大象在受训练时受到怎么样的对待呢？我们今天就来阅读 Unit6 的第一天课程，揭开大象观光不为人知的一面。首先，我们看到第一段的第一句。亚洲象优美的缓步在森林中，很值得一看。这一句的第一个字就是我们第一个主单字，动词 lumber， 有缓慢的移动的意思。这一句原来是 The Asian elephant is lumbering gracefully through the forest, and it is a sight to behold. 前后两句主词相同，省略前一句的主词，右前一句的主词为主动语态的现在进行式。因此 be 动词 is 也省略，只留下现在分词 lumbering。另外连接词 and 省略，而后面那一句的主词 it 改回 the Asian elephant， 如此就形成主词相同的分词构句。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about the troubling truth behind elephant tourism. So elephants are quite popular in zoos, especially if you go to some of these Southeast Asian countries like Thailand or Cambodia, Laos, we've mentioned, where they have lots of opportunities for tourists to ride an elephant, to get up on their backs and take a little ride for a while. I have to admit it was fun with my friends. There were 4 of us together and we went and all of us got on elephants at the same time. It was pretty awesome.
Is this recent?
Oh, no, it was after I first moved to Taiwan, so back in 2005. Yeah, it was quite impressive. They have very rough skin. I was surprised when I got close to them what their skin felt like. But they were very kind, at least the elephants we were around. They were very gentle. We did feed them, and their trunks are amazing. That whole trunk business, you know, how they pick up their food and they drink with the trunk. It's amazing. And how they can even carry their little elephants and move them back and forth with their trunks. Those trunks are amazing.
Okay, I'm sure they are quite amazing. And, of course, lots of wild animals are tamed for tourist purposes. So, yeah, you went to an elephant center there to see some elephants. So let's talk about these wildlife attractions. Wildlife, of course, refers to wild animals mostly. And, yes, they bring those animals into captivity so tourists can interact with them. You can get rides on elephants or you can see tigers or whatever. Those are referred to as wildlife attractions, particularly those involving elephants, play an important role in Southeast Asia's thriving tourism industry. So, of course, there are lots of people in the world who want to go out and see the world. What do you want to do in your life? I want to travel. I want to see different countries. And, of course, a popular destination is Southeast Asia. Yeah, it's a great place. They've got traditional culture and old buildings and stuff like that. So, of course, they go there not just to see the temples and the performances, but they also go there to see the animals.
Right.
So, of course, those wildlife attractions play an important role in tourism in Southeast Asia. It is thriving, which means it's quite active and people are coming all the time and they can make a lot of money. Yeah, if you run an animal farm or something for tourists, you're probably going to make a pretty penny.
Now, this is instantly visible, what we've been describing, in popular destinations like Thailand's Chiang Mai or Laos's Luang Prabang. I've heard some people say Chiang Mai. I say Chiang Mai, but, they're both fine, I'm sure. I don't think that's how they say them anyway. It's just like the foreign version of some of these places. I haven't been to Laos or Cambodia, but Thailand their tourism industry is very, very important to the country. Thriving just means it's doing very well. You can use thriving, though, to describe a child, for example, who's growing up and learning and doing well. They're thriving, especially if they are going to a new school. You might worry about how they're fitting in. Oh, Johnny's thriving there. He's just loving it. So some of these popular destinations where they have a number of elephant tours, sanctuaries, and kind of experiences that you can sign up for, all of these things are rising substantially to keep up with tourist demand. I wanted to point out this particular sentence is a little tricky, and you might think, hey, why are they using a singular verb is when they've been talking about all this plural stuff like elephant tours and sanctuaries and experiences? Why aren't they saying are rising? Guys, if you look back, you're going to notice it has where the number of, and that's the noun that you're going to want to match up with your verb. So the number is rising substantially. So the number's going up to keep up with demand. And demand can be countable or non-count. Here it's non-count because we're talking about generally what people want, not specific things they're looking for. Those would be demands, but here's just demand.
Yep, there is much demand to see elephants, for example. Or you could say, hey, my boss made an unreasonable demand, so I quit the job. So there's an example of demand being used as a countable noun, but here again, as you said, it's referring to what people want to see. So demand is high here for people to see these elephants. So we use the non-count form here. And the same is true of the region's captive elephant populations. Captive here is an adjective. It just refers to animals that are kept by humans. They're not wild. They're captive. They're kept in cages or in a restricted area.
Yeah, they're confined. They're not able to go where they want to go. If a person's captive, maybe they've been kidnapped, they're in prison, or they're put into a room and they can't get out, they're captive. But you could have a captive audience, which means you're performing and the audience is so interested in what you're doing they can't look away. So we use it that way too, but here it simply means these elephants don't have their freedom anymore. So, yeah, it's kind of sad. In Thailand alone, just considering this one country, the number of elephants living in captivity really rose quickly in just 6 years. So it went from 1,600 to 2,100. According to this group called World Animal Protection, they probably do a lot of studies and gather together data on elephants and other animals.
And it goes on to say some of these elephants were bred in captivity. Breed is the verb there, so bred is the past tense. Basically to raise them there, to have them be born there, and they grow up there. But others were ambushed and taken from the wild. Here we've got the word ambush that oftentimes happens when we talk about military attacks. Maybe you were ambushed by the enemy. They attacked you suddenly and by surprise, and you were all taken prisoner, or you were killed or something. So in this particular case, these animals were basically attacked or captured in the wild, and they were taken prisoner. They were basically taken and held captive.
Yeah, so they were ambushed. So government corruption, corruption is when someone's doing some illegal things. Usually it has to do with taking bribes, but their conduct is dishonest. So they're taking bribes perhaps from these poachers. A poacher is someone who goes onto private land to either hunt or fish illegally. Here, they're poachers who are smuggling these poor elephants across Southeast Asia. And they can do it easily because the government's been paid off not to notice. So if you smuggle, guys, it just means you're moving illegal goods into or out of a country. If you're smuggling drugs, especially in or out of Taiwan, you're in big trouble.
Right. Sometimes people smuggle drugs in. I think when I first came here to Taiwan, people were smuggling cigarettes in from China into Taiwan.
Why?
And you could buy them on the street. I guess you could make money that way. I haven't seen mainland cigarettes in years, so I guess they stopped that. But in any case here, yes, government corruption allows the poachers to smuggle these poor animals around Southeast Asia very easily. And elephants are intelligent, they're social creatures, and they have highly developed memories, as we've been talking about. And being taken from their herd can leave them with lasting emotional scars. Different groups of animals have different words to refer to their groups, like a flock of seagulls, a school of fish, and in this case, a herd of elephants. You could also say a herd of whales and a herd of cattle.
A herd of sheep, yeah. So they really get close to their fellow elephants in the herds. But you won't see any of this if you go on an elephant ride or visit an entertainment venue where elephants perform tricks. Tragically or very sadly, this is because the elephants aren't used for tourism until they go through this really brutal training. We're calling it a regime. A regime is a system or a way of doing things, and it's always coming from above. So the elephants don't get to decide how they're trained. Brutal means pretty harsh, pretty awful, and they train them that way so that they can suppress or take away or control natural behaviors that might make them a little bit disobedient among the tourists, and that could be dangerous, of course. Disobedient means someone is not obeying. They're 不乖. So, yeah, it's kind of sad they have to go through this awful training. It also probably takes away some of their natural, spontaneous personalities. So awareness, being aware of how dreadful this is or the dreadful implications of elephant riding is going up, is rising. Dreadful just means really bad. Oh, that meal I had was dreadful. Tasted awful. Dreadful just means it causes suffering, fear, and happiness. It was extremely bad or very serious.
And we've got dreadful implications, which basically refers to the things that could happen. Dreadful consequences of elephant riding. That is rising. The elephants are suffering more and more. However, few people realize, or not many people know, that the dark side of elephant tourism doesn't stop at the saddle. When you ride on an elephant or on a horse, you're riding on a piece of leather, usually, that is called a saddle. And we'll continue talking about this topic in our next program, but right now we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
我们接着看到第二段的第一句，野生动物景点，尤其是那些和大象有关的，在东南亚蓬勃发展的旅游业中扮演着重要的角色。本句的主词是 wildlife attractions， 所搭配的动词是 play， 两者之间的 those 则是指 wildlife attractions 作为同位语用。Those 后面原本是 those that involve elephants， 关系代名词 that 在此做主格用，后面的 involve 为主动语态，因此省略关代 that 之后，动词 involve 变成现在分词 involving。我们接着看到第二段的第三句 The same is true of the region's captive elephant populations。 东南亚受监禁的大象数量也是如此。形容词 captive 是指被监禁的、被俘虏的。片语 take somebody captive 或是 hold somebody captive 是指监禁某人。The soldier was tortured when he was taken captive by the enemy。 这名士兵在被敌军监禁时遭受折磨。 我们接着看到下一句有一个和 captive 相关的名词 captivity。captivity 有监禁、圈养的意思。片语 in captivity 就是指被监禁或被圈养。Some people consider it cruel to keep animals in captivity in zoos. 有些人认为把动物关在动物园是残忍的。另外 capture C-A-P-T-U-R-E 则是动词，有捕获、俘虏的意思。Rebel forces shot down a fighter jet and captured its pilot. 叛军击落一架战斗机并俘虏其飞行员。第二段的最后一句提到为何非法猎捕大象在东南亚无法被完全取缔的原因。我们看到这一句，政府的腐败使盗猎者相对容易的在东南亚各地走私这些可怜的动物。名词 corruption 是腐败、堕落、贪污的意思。这个字的动词和形容词都是 corrupt C-O-R-R-U-P-T。 动词有使腐败、使堕落的意思，形容词是指腐败的、贪污的。The general overthrew the corrupt government and promised to bring back democracy. 那位将军推翻了腐败的政府，承诺要恢复民主体制。另外，本句最后有一个片语 with ease， 意思是容易的、不费力的。To everyone's surprise, the little boy lifted the gigantic rock with ease. 令人惊讶的是，那名小男孩轻易地举起了这块巨石。要注意的是 at ease 和 with ease 的意思不同。At ease 是指自在、不拘束。The speaker tried to make himself feel at ease before giving the speech. 这名讲者在演讲前试着让自己放松。我们接着看到文章的最后一段有一句 tragically 开头的长句。首先 not until 指的是直到怎么样才怎么样的意思，所以本句说明直到大象完成设计来抑制任何可能使他们不服从或对游客构成危险的自然行为的残酷训练制度后，才被用于这种观光业。这一句的 regime 这边是关系代名词 that 省略后的用法，原句是 regimes that are designed to suppress any natural behavior。 其后的动词为被动语态，所以 be 动词 are 省略，只留下过去分词 designed。 本句的最后再用了一个 that 关系子句修饰名词 natural behaviors， 说明是会让大象不服从或是对游客造成危险的自然行为。以上就是今天的课程，谢谢大家收听。
And that is it for today, everybody. But please stay tuned to our program for our next program because we're going to continue talking about the troubling truth behind elephant tourism. Please join us then. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
See ya.